I'm going to interrupt for a minute.
Yeah, I would never do that.
Partway through this meeting, I may request interrupt the meeting to make an announcement. Let me.
Like to call Planning Advisory Committee to order. Like to welcome our public members, Pam and Sam, for joining us this afternoon. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes of September 16th, 2025. Any changes anybody wants to make? Go ahead, Councilor Musa.
For some reason, we don't have the executive committee on anymore.
Yeah, we've got, something's wrong.
Yeah, I cannot open it, so.
It's not there, it's not showing.
What's the time?
Not showing on our
Oh, it's not like, and the executive committee's not under agendas.
That's what we got.
The executive committee is not there.
Just showing the continued one further.
Surely you'll have to do something. Do your magic.
Get out of it, because if you get out of it, you won't be able to get back in it.
Just announced we're having technical difficulties.
Okay, we're having technical difficulty. We'll be resuming shortly.
Technical difficulties.
She cut us off.
Everybody good? Councilor Garden Cole, you're good? Tom, could you go to see Councilor Garden Cole? Anybody not online, councilors? Thanks, Tom. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes. We've done that so far. I move the minutes approved. First item on the agenda, PLN 25-003, Serenity Lodge, final staff report, MPS and LUB text amendments, and consideration of development agreement. And Debbie, you can begin when you're ready. Okay, where are we? Let's see. Eleanor. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, council passed back in March a motion to direct staff to find a way forward to assist Ms. McCaskill to separate her business and dwelling to PIDs through a development agreement or an alternative, and that was for Serenity Lodge. So the subject site is identified here with the red outline. The property is located with frontage on Bakery Lane, and there's 2 Civics off of it, 39 Russell McKean Drive and 53 Bakery Lane. So right now, there's 6 meters of frontage, as I mentioned, on Bakery Lane. The property is zoned R2, and there's a development agreement on the subject lands that enable the Serenity Lodge, which is a seniors care facility, to operate. Again, here's a satellite image of the subject property. This is a single unit dwelling down here, and up here is Serenity Lodge, and the objective of the application is to amend the regulations to allow for, the property to be subdivided so that the Serenity Lodge is on its own PID. This is an image of Serenity Lodge looking across the street, looking south on Russell McKean Drive, and this is looking north on Russell McKean Drive. So there are a variety of issues that have to be addressed and new policies created in order to consider the application. So first off, we need amendments to the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw. The new policy that's required allows council to consider entering into a development agreement for the institutional use on an existing right-of-way easement in the growth management areas for lands that are zoned to dwelling unit residential R2. The existing development agreement, which currently permits Serenity Lodge, will also need to be substantially amended because the proposal can only be considered under council's new policy. And the property owner must also acquire land and frontage from 35 Russell McKean Drive in order to have frontage on Russell McKean Drive, the right-of-way easement. So this is the sample of this plan of subdivision to be submitted with the development agreement. So here we have Russell McKean Drive. So the new lot, both of these property owners are family members. So there's an agreement that the new lot will have frontage on Russell McKean Drive. They'll acquire frontage from the neighboring lands, and then the lands will be subdivided and create a new lot as shown here in the red box, and then the single unit dwelling will maintain its existing 6 meters of frontage on Bakery Lane. The proposal does not enable other lots to be subdivided with frontage on Russell McKean Drive for other purposes. However, if somebody also wanted to apply for a development agreement on Russell McKean Drive for an institutional use, such as, let's say, a church or a cemetery, then they could do so and go through this process. If existing landowners want to develop the lands for other purposes, for example, multi-unit dwellings or townhouses, then they'd have to go through the process of upgrading Russell McKean Drive into a public road that could be taken over by the municipality. So proposed amendments, so we have 2 sets of proposed amendments, one set to policy RD23 as a municipal planning strategy, and then to the land use bylaw under the R2 section. Citizen engagement, we had a public information meeting in July, and those notes have been attached to the staff report. And in August, we sent a questionnaire to property owners and residents within 300 meters of the subject property. A total of 179 questionnaires were mailed, with 12 responses received. The results have been shared with members of Planning Advisory Committee for their review. And overall, the feedback was varied. Some residents viewed the proposed changes positively, others were opposed, and some commented on matters unrelated to the proposal. So the public hearing is moving forward for October 29th, and ads will appear in the October 15th and the 22nd editions of the Chronicle Herald. And as well, the notice will be placed on social media and on the municipal website. We had to hand deliver the public hearing notifications to all properties within 300 meters of the subject property, and that was because of the postal strike. And we did this because the applicant is under time constraints by the province, and so in order to assist her in getting her lot subdivided for provincial regulations, we hand delivered those notices. And the recommendation is that Planning Advisory Committee recommends that Council give second reading and approve the proposed municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw amendments and give approval to the development agreement. And the recommended motion is below. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Debbie. Councillor Dixon.
Yes, I'm prepared to make the motions. There's 2 separate motions, I understand?
Yes, the way it's worded up there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Plan Advisory Committee recommends the council, okay, give second reading and approve your proposal to amend the MPS and the LUB by adopting policies that will permit council to consider entering into a development agreement on land zone 2 dwelling unit residential R2, zone to permit institutional use IU, zone uses to be subdivided on an existing right-of-way easement in a growth management area.
Seconded.
Are we doing them separately? Okay, any discussion on the first motion? If not, we'll go to the vote. Votes are in as it passed unanimously.
Thank you. Prepared to make the second motion now?
Go ahead.
Okay, give final consideration and approve entering into a development agreement to permit PID 452-87638 to be subdivided on an existing right-of-way easement signed within 1 year of council approval and contingent upon approval of the MPS and the LUB amendments by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
So moved and second, any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. And that motion is passed unanimously. Thank you, Debbie, for that report. Next item on the agenda is PLN 25-004 Havenwood Drive, final staff report, MPS and LUB mapping amendments. And that's also you, Debbie. You can begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the applicant is RYC Property Limited. The subject property is divided into two spots. So the eastern portion, the applicant is requesting that the property be rezoned to allow for townhouse uses. So it's being proposed to be rezoned to townhouse R2T. And then on the western portion, there was a retracement plan done, which added some additional land to the lot, which is currently zoned to RU. And so they're asking that the land be zoned to R2 to match the rest of the lot. So the R2T zoned lands would allow for 4 on-street townhouse buildings for a total of 24 dwelling units on that eastern portion of property. And the proposal for the western portion of the property would accommodate 10 semi-detached units for a total of 20 dwelling units. There's a concept plan that the applicant has submitted, so on-street townhouses are being proposed, and they would be located here and here, and they're showing a stormwater management pond there as well. And then the end portion would be semi-detached as per the rest of the street. And again, those are just showing this western portion and the eastern portion. And I should note that there is an existing open space parcel that the extension of Havenwood Drive will eventually go to. And the McGinnis Trail will be realigned to go across, and they'll have an existing walkway here. This is a satellite image just showing again the two parcels of land, one at the end of Havenwood Drive and one at the end of the subject property. And then the two images, this is just looking at the treat area and then looking at Havenwood Drive here. So the existing developed portion of Havenwood Drive is a public gravel road owned by the province. And under the requirements of the subdivision bylaw regulations, the proposed road extension will be a municipally owned paved road with a sidewalk. So it does have the potential to set up a situation for a gap road. We have sent a letter to the province asking if they'd be interested in negotiating that parcel of road. They have agreed to enter into negotiations with us, but those negotiations haven't started to date. So under policy analysis, the policy that allows council to consider this application is policy RD 29. And it is the policy that guides council in evaluating policies to establish new medium density residential neighborhood areas. And the review has been included in the staff report. Policy IM 11 permits council to consider private applications to amend the municipal planning strategy where the proposed amendments are in the best interest of the municipality. And just in relation to the number of lots that can be developed in Havenwood Drive, the applicant will have to comply and there'll be no more than 100 lots permitted on Havenwood Drive. And just to note that this application is not appealable to the Nova Scotia Regulatory Appeal Board. Citizen engagement, so a public information meeting was held in July. The notes from the meeting are attached with the staff report. A questionnaire, again, was mailed in August to property owner and residents within 300 meters of the subject property. A total of 75 questionnaires were mailed and 3 responses were received. And those responses have been provided for PAC for their consideration. And planning staff are planning for a public hearing in November with letters to be mailed during the first week of November to accommodate that rotating postal strike. And if there's another full postal stoppage, staff recommend using the Chronicle Herald municipal website and social media to inform property owners of the hearing. As an alternative, it is to delay the organizing the public hearing until the postal strike ends. So this is just a flow chart to show where we are. We're at the public hearing stage. And so there's 2 recommendations. The first one is that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the council give second reading and approve the mapping amendments. And the second one's related to the Postal Canada Post action. So that approval be given to use the Chronicle Herald, the municipal website, and social media to notify nearby property owners and residents of the public hearing if Canada Post moves back to a full work stoppage. So if they stop the rotating strike and we're then stuck again, ask that instead of delivering, mailing the notices, that we use the alternative social media means to notify residents. And the 2 recommended motions are below. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Debbie. Councilor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Debbie, for the R2T zone, are they gonna be having townhouses or they have choice of doing apartment building there?
Under the R2T zone, they have a choice of townhouses, or they could potentially do a small multiplex, but they would have to comply with our 3 requirements, which means that they would have to have common outdoor amenity space as well as amenity space for each individual unit. And the parking and everything would have to be aligned. So I don't know if even a small multiplex, if they could, because of the way that the road is laid out and the limited space that they have, if they could do small multiplexes. I'm not sure if that would work for the land that they have.
So if they manage to do it, can they put more than 24 units?
Again, it would really depend on the layout. They would have to meet all the parking requirements. They would have to meet all the common amenity space, but potentially, possibly, but again, without doing the actual calculations, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
You could do a maximum of 8 dwelling units in a small multiplex, just for context.
to a total of as many as they can fit in, as
Well,
their land can.
I don't think they would be able to have more than 4 lots, so 4 times 8.
So that would be 32 instead, 24.
Yeah, potentially, but again, there's a lot more they'd have to fit because they'd have to have 1.5 parking stalls per each unit. Then they'd have to have the visitor parking stalls. They'd have to have outdoor common amenity space, whereas with the townhouse units, there's only a maximum of 6 permitted per building, and each one of those townhouse units would be required to have only 1 parking stall instead of 1.5, and they don't have to have the visitor parking because the idea would be to have the driveway onto Havenwood Drive, so each unit would have its own driveway.
Yeah, but with the R2T, they could go 3 stories too, right?
11 meters. So, as long as they didn't go over the 11 meters.
So if they can go underground half a basement, they could put 3 stories there.
Yeah, you could do 3 stories with a house as well with 11 meters.
Yeah,
So the R2
but
zone allows for
a house
11
is different than an apartment, and then you'll be putting an apartment building in the middle of R2 subdivision on both sides, so I don't know. I cannot, yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Deputy Warden McPhee.
Thank you, Chair. My question, I think is much the same as Councillor Moose's. Rumors have it, of course, in Shubenacadie that there's an apartment building going to go up on Havenwood, and people are opposed to that. So I just want a clarification. They can put an apartment building in there of what size?
Under the R2T regulations, they could potentially do small multiplex, but it would be in accordance with the R3 provisions, so they'd have to meet those provisions, and it could be only a maximum of 8 dwelling units per small multiplex. But I don't believe that's the intention of the applicant to do that. I believe that they were going to make them so that they could be more oriented towards seniors, similar to what he's done in other areas of the municipality. But he'll be able to speak to that at the public hearing.
But they could then, so
Yep, there is a potential.
from now on, when I'm asked, I'll be able to say, yes, they could put an apartment building on this property.
Yeah, as I said, the minimum lot requirements are different. You need a larger lot than what you need for R2T zone. So you need 900 square meters rather than the 800 square meters. And the frontage requirements are different as well. And the setbacks are different, and as I mentioned, the parking is different.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Through the chair, I don't have any more questions that's already been asked, but I'd be prepared to move the motion that we go to a hearing. So I'm going to recommend, Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council give second reading and approve the application from RYC Property Limited to amend the MPS and LUB by changing the land use designation of the eastern portion of PID 45097227 to medium-density residential neighborhood designation and rezone the same area of land to townhouse R2T zone, and for the western portion of PID 450972227, redesignate to establish residential neighborhood ER designation and rezone the same to 2-dwelling unit residential neighborhood R2 zone.
Thank you, second. Any more discussion on this? Counselor Moose to the motion? It is? Go ahead.
Just a follow-up, Debbie. So those 8 units, they can be joined together and be 16 unit, right? Can be zero line between the two buildings, or?
Through, Mr. Chair, no, they can't be.
They can be.
No, they all have to be on their own lot, and in the R2T zone, there's a required, well, it would be considered, if they did apartment buildings, it would be considered under the R3 zone. And they'd have to have a setback of 6 meters from the rear property line and 4 meters from each side property line. And I misspoke before, I said the height was 11 meters in the R3 zone, it's actually 10 meters.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Dixon to the motion?
Sorry, I was going to make a motion.
Okay. Nobody left to speak, we'll go to the vote on the first motion. Somebody hasn't voted yet? And the motion is passed 12-1. with Councilor Musa voting nay.
Oh, yes.
I'll move the second part.
Go ahead, Councilor Tingley.
Direct staff due to the Canada Post strike to use the Chronicle Herald, the municipal website, and social media as a way to notify the public of the public hearing if Canada Post moves back to a full work stoppage.
Second.
Councilor Garden Cole.
I just have a question, and it is regarding the motion. So if we just delivered something by hand for the Serenity due to the postage, due to Canada Post issue, why would that not be the same? To let the public know of the public hearing.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it was just because have a few different public hearings coming up, and it takes up the time of our enforcement officer, and it was just a matter of work, trying to balance work.
Yeah, no, I do understand that.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I just think that if you're trying to get the information out there, and if you've, especially having just done it for another issue that you otherwise would have sent something out through the mail, that it would only be consistent to do it in this situation as well. I'm not sure how the other councillors feel about it. Go ahead, Rachel.
Thank you. Just if I could also mention, there's a similar motion with the next application. And on that application, part of the reason also was that there are quite a number of property owners that don't live in that area of the application site. So if we were to hand deliver, you would miss quite a few property owners unless you paid to courier each of those. So there was, I guess, feeling like there's maybe some unfairness where you would hand deliver to people that own properties in that application area, but the ones that weren't in that application area, maybe they lived in Halifax or Bedford, you couldn't actually get the letter to them as well. So not being able to do everyone at the same time if you were hand delivering letters. Just wanted to kind of clarify that there's more than one reason why that recommendation is being made.
And that wasn't the case with the Serenity?
Through you, Madam Warden, we calculated there's, I think, 4, possibly 5 that was outside of the province or outside of the area that we couldn't get to. But the majority of those ones were all located in Enfield, around the actual subject property, and then I delivered a few that went to Belnan and such.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Nobody left to speak. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Thank you, Debbie. Next item on the agenda is Plan 25-002, Magnolia Continuing Care Assisted Living Facility. Rachel, you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this application is for the assisted living facility next to the Magnolia, and the request is to increase from 70 to 76 units. And you can see the property outlined in red there. The Magnolia is on the blue property, and the land is currently zoned R2. So the amendments also include an expansion of the ground floor area, changes to the parking lot layout, and changes to the elevation design, but the main change is from increasing from 70 to 76 units. This is the approved site plan, and you can see the building just here. I'm highlighting it with my cursor. And this is the proposed building. It is set closer to this rear property boundary by approximately 11 meters. And then also it is set slightly closer to this property or these properties here by around 2 meters. The parking lot layout also differs. I'll show you the original one. You can see the parking is all in between the road or the driveway around the parking area, whereas the driveway comes through the parking area. As I mentioned, there's a change in parking area, so that includes an increase of parking spaces from 71 to 92. Internal movement of vehicles has been amended, and I've already mentioned the distance to the property boundaries. This is the approved building design, and the proposed building design is very similar. There is a canopy that extends past the building, so people can be dropped off under the canopy to provide some protection from the weather. As I mentioned, the property is zoned R2. The existing development agreements, the applicants have around 4.5 months to apply for a permit, so they could construct the original 70-unit building. That timeline is still there to allow them to do that. Nova Scotia Public Works have confirmed they've got no concerns, and comments were received from the Enfield Volunteer Fire Department, and staff have added into the development agreement the ability for the fire department to visit the property prior to the painting of parking spaces, so that they can identify if there are any parking spaces which might limit the movements of their aerial truck through the property. The proposed building is similar in size and scale to the existing building, or the existing approved building, and staff suggests that the addition of the 6 units and the alteration of the location of the building will have limited impact on neighbouring properties. An advertisement was placed in the Chronicle Herald. 140 property owners were sent questionnaires, would-be property owners and residents were sent questionnaires. And of those 140, 13 responses were received. All of those have been scanned for PAC to review. A full list of the summary of the comments have been provided in the staff report. And then this slide here just talks again about the Canada Post strike, and it's the same recommendation with this report as on the last application. And we're here at the staff evaluation final staff report stage. Public hearing has not been scheduled for October just due to the rolling Canada Post strike, but is being planned for November, and we'll just make sure we get those letters in the mail sooner than we would ordinarily have sent them. And this application can be appealed to the Regulatory and Appeals Board. There's an alternative motion there with regards to the notifying the public, and the recommended motions are on the screen there. And just to say that because there's a rolling Canada Post strike, we are planning to mail letters out. This second motion really is just to deal with it if there is a full work stoppage. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rachel. Councillor Garden Cove, go ahead.
Well, I'm just willing to make the motion. I realize councillors may have comments about it, but I am prepared to make the motion, and then we can go from there. Planning Advisory Committee recommends to council that council give final consideration and approve amendments to the existing Magnolia Continuing Care Holdings Development Agreement for an assisted living facility at 410 Highway 2, Enfield.
Councillor Dixon to the motion, the first one.
Question about the.
Just a minute.
I have a question here on the permit requirements. I would assume that would be acceptable. They have 4.5 months to apply for a permit. What if they don't apply in that 4.5 months? The reason I ask this has been going on for 17 years. And a lot of staff time, a lot of staff work. Sometimes things have to end.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have spoken to the applicants, and they are actually moving forward with preparing plans and the final construction drawings for the property. Their intent is to start fairly soon. I can't remember exactly what the development agreement says, but they would have to have an extension of the time on the development agreement if they were to want to go past that time limit.
Okay, so it's being monitored because it is a long time for nothing to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Nobody left to speak. We'll go to the vote on the motion. And the motion is passed unanimously. Oops.
Oh, yes.
Councillor Garden Cole, second motion?
No, I'm not going to make that motion, thanks.
Okay.
I
Gordon
would,
Rolston.
I would move the Planning Advisory Committee recommends to council that council direct staff to use the Chronicle Herald, the municipal website, and social media as a way to notify the public of the public hearing should Canada Post move to a complete work stoppage.
So moved in second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Thank you, Rachel, for that report. Next item on the agenda is Plan 25006, Arkham Developments, MPS and LUB amendments and development agreement application. Rachel, you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the application is for 2 properties on Dory Lane, and I've hatched in on the plan there where the actual proposed apartment buildings are proposed for. Tentative subdivision approval has been granted in August 2024 for a municipal street and new R2 lots on the western side of the property. So it's the side adjacent to the existing subdivision. So there's just a note that the concept plan does show semi-detached buildings, but those are permitted as of right once subdivision approval has been granted. The application is for 2 4-story multi-unit buildings. And to enable the proposed apartment buildings, amendments are needed to the designation of the properties. So to take them from established residential neighbourhood designation to medium density residential neighbourhood, and rezone from 2 dwelling unit residential to multiple unit residential. They'll also require a development agreement as they are proposing more than 24 units. The development agreement is contingent upon the rezoning and redesignation being approved. This is the concept plan, and as I mentioned, these are 2 lots and not part of the application, but the application relates to these 2 buildings back here. This will be a municipal street. And then this is the area that has been given tentative subdivision approval. And we've recently received an application for tentative subdivision approval for the R2 properties being indicated on the plan here. But just to kind of highlight that the multiple unit buildings are between the Magnolia property and the properties on Alderney Drive. These are all going to be new dwellings, so that they're not actually situated next to an existing subdivision. This is just a rendering of the proposed building. And as I mentioned, there'll need to be some changes to the designation and zone, and there are policies that enable council to consider that. Comments will be sought from external agencies and internal departments, which will include Nova Scotia Public Works and the Municipal Department of Infrastructure and Operations. And there is no right of appeal with regards to municipal planning strategy amendments. However, there is a right of appeal for the development agreement element to this application. An advertisement will be placed in the Chronicle Herald. Public information meeting is needed. So we're at this initial stage, and if approval is given, the next stage of the public information meeting. And that's recommendation is for council to authorise staff to schedule a public information meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. So when was this first brought, the current property, the property owners at the time in the early 2020s brought forth an application of sorts for this property. Just trying to recall when that was.
I don't know if the director has that information. I don't recall when that application was.
Just a minute.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't recall off the top of my head either, but I can look it up if you'd like an answer during the meeting.
Sorry, I did send an email saying I would be looking for that, but maybe I didn't send it soon enough. Yeah, so this came to us from, maybe not have been from Arkham, back in the early 2020s, came to us from someone else looking to put up something that wasn't permitted there, and it never got any further than this stage right here. Can you bring me up I realize that there is a 4-story facility, assisted living facility going up close to this. That was something that was applied for and approved, as Councillor Dixon said, 17 years ago, been in the works. And it doesn't mean that because that 4-story building is going up, the assisted living one, that it's okay for 4-story buildings to start trickling down from there down to where? Right down through the community? Would you mind bringing me up the zoning for District 1? You know, kind of a colorful visual for us.
This map here, is this what you're looking for?
No, I'm actually looking for District 1 zoning. Is that possible to bring that up to show us where the MUC is, where the R2 is, where the village core is?
Debbie's just going to pull that information up and we'll switch over to her laptop.
That would be
While we're
great.
waiting for that, Mr.
Thank
Chair, I can tell you that it was 2022, and council refused the application on May 25th, 2022.
Okay, no details on that, I mean, I remember they were looking to put apartments in. Definitely, they were looking for some R2, which is not unreasonable, that's for sure. The problem is, council, if we don't maintain our zoning that we have in place in this relatively small area of Enfield, it's going to develop into developmental chaos.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that previous application was larger. It was for 4 72-unit apartment buildings, so they were going to build the same street, essentially, put townhouses on the Alderney Drive side, semi-detached, but then apartments on the backside as
Right.
well. So
And they were
where
4-story.
They were, yeah.
Yep, so essentially, basically along the same lines as this proposal.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, except that in this case, both sides of this new street would be fronted with semi-detached dwelling units, and the apartments would then be behind those, between the school and and Magnolia and that new street.
Okay. My issue is with the 4-story apartment buildings that are going to be potentially creeping down into a zone that currently doesn't permit that. So if we can, okay, so that's District 1. So just, the purple is MUC zoning?
The darker purple is MC zoning, yeah.
I don't know why I always call it MUC zoning. Okay, so that's your purple. That's your MC zoning, and what is permitted there?
So that would be, Debbie, could I have, so that would be commercial uses, residential uses, apartment buildings.
Right, okay. And then we move into the yellow, which is essentially R2?
That's correct, yes.
Right. Then we move into the amber there, which is your village core?
The lighter purple is the village core.
Okay,
That orangey color is R3, multi-unit residential.
okay. So this is where I'm going with this. If we keep allowing applications and allowing development to happen in areas, we have spent a lot of time and work and what equates to money into setting up the planning and the zoning of these communities. Enfield is a very small, geographically small community that we're looking at right now, and it is imperative that we maintain what we have set up. If we keep allowing developers to come in and make application and to put up what isn't permitted in these areas, like it's going to be a mess. And we've actually been guilty of that before, and we've seen the results of it. So I feel like we should have learned from it, and we shouldn't continue to go down that road. There is tons of provision for that kind of development in the MC zoning. We get down to the village core zoning, a little lesser in the gold zoning there. And as I say, this is a very geographically small area that we're dealing with here. So, I'm already, the apartment buildings that we approved across from the Legion there, you wouldn't believe how much I hear about that. Every time a resident who's close to there goes by or sees me at the church breakfast or whatever, they're never going to forget about that we permitted those to go in. I don't want to be doing that again. I don't want to be making those mistakes again. We have to draw the line at where we are going to permit these 4-story apartment buildings to be put up, not in the zones that we have set out for them to be. And that's my opinion on it for now. I'll listen to what other councillors have to say about it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Miriam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to staff, question about PID 452-35835. And I believe that's the section that kind of runs between Alderney and Dory, that part of the, do I have that right? There's a strip of houses, I guess, that is part of the application. I guess my question is, just to get a bit of clarity on that, was that the piece that was previously approved on a
Are we talking, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, is this the property where my cursor is?
Right. And I'm just wondering, was that previously approved, that row of, if you go back to the concept plan, it might be easier to kind of ask my question. Yeah. So on the upper part of the Dory Lane extension, am I right that was previously approved or no?
I mean, that's the area that's been approved for, it's been tentative subdivision approval's been given for our 2 lots.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, and so in looking at this now, I guess my one question is everything on the table again? So we had previous approval on the top part. Now we're looking at more pieces. Or does the top part, it had approval and it's still one option? Is that still?
So they have approval to build that. They could, subdivision approval, they can go in now and construct the road and subdivide these subdivision approval has been given, tentative approval. A subdivision application has been submitted for these ones here where my cursor are.
Right.
These are as of right developments, so councillor, this is not part of this application. Those are not on the table for consideration with this application. This area here, the area that's just hatched on the map there, this is the only area that's under consideration with this application.
Yeah, that was, I had another question, but because of the answer, that you've answered the other question, so thank you, that's it, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you. Through the chair to staff, I guess I have to agree with my partner over here about the area in the infield, like it being congested with everything going on like that, like it is. There's going to be more traffic problems. I don't know if you go to the infield school, what it's like to get around that intersection in the morning. I have 2 grandkids going there. It's a pain, more policing problems, more fire issues. Fire department with all the turns and twists, concerns there. I just don't think it's a great idea, and I definitely will not be supporting this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
So, Mr. Chair, could I?
Go ahead.
So, Rachel, if you could put back the concept plan, one of the things, and again, we haven't done our full evaluation and staff aren't recommending anything at this point, but there are some things that we do like about this, like the increased circulation. So there will be a new street that connects directly to Alderney, so there's an additional way to get out of that subdivision. And there would also be a direct connection for pedestrians to get to the school now from that subdivision, so there'll be a sidewalk that comes up to the school property. So I think there are some pluses as well as obviously concerns about additional traffic. And of course, we'll go to Provincial Department of Transportation for their comments on the application as well.
Thank you, John. Still sticking in my mind.
Councillor Dixon, yeah, okay. Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Debbie, how far away that those apartment buildings are gonna be from the school? And I see like a clear area of the school over there. Is that the playground or something like that? So,
I don't have that information to hand, but this is the school property back here.
well,
So
you can,
the apartment building will be here, and this is the school property. I don't have the footprints on the plan here, but I can certainly provide that.
well, you know where the road is going, right?
The road is just here, so just eyeballing it, it's going to be around here. I don't have any measurements on
Okay,
the
so you're
plan.
gonna have one apartment building on this side and one
On
on the
this
other
side
side?
and one on this side.
Yeah, so, and how far it's gonna be, that apartment building from the school?
I don't have that information because I don't have the footprints of the school on the plan here.
I know we refused many application because of that. We don't want anything next to the school, and those apartment buildings are gonna be probably 100% rentals, and you don't know who you're gonna attract over there, and I don't like to see anybody and like someone that we don't want near the school to be there. So to me, if any of my kids go into our school or anybody's kids, like their safety is gonna be more important than anything municipal for me. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, I guess from a planning point of view, we would generally see multi-unit housing close to institutional uses as actually a good thing. People can walk to those destinations easier, so, not as many school buses running, that sort of thing. And I would also note that although Rachel doesn't have an air photo up there, that portion of the school property is wooded, where it's building, and the setbacks I don't think we've established them yet, but they would be set up in the development agreement, so how far that apartment building has to be from their property line. And again, will be consulting with the Cobequid Center or Chignecto Center for Education on any comments I might have about the proximity and the traffic flow and so on.
Yeah, but you always have the potential having bad tenant over there and something happened with the school area too, so close to the school.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would be careful about characterizing tenants as
No, I'm not
less
characterizing
desirable than
anybody, but
property owners.
it's a. Thank you.
Is that all, Councillor? Thank you. Councillor Jordan Cole?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very familiar with the area. I'm assuming that R1 is the current Magnolia, or R2? Where's the Magnolia?
Where my cursor is, this is the Magnolia, it's the blue, it's the IU, institutional use.
That's a school. It's
The
R2.
school,
That's a school.
yeah, sorry, the school, institutional use.
Okay, so where is the Magnolia?
It's this,
No, down, it's R2, yeah.
that's where the assisted living facility proposal is.
Okay, so then the Magnolia is a little bit out of the picture there?
No, it's in the.
It's in this area here,
Okay,
and the
Oh.
assisted living facility is down here,
okay, so then that blue area is half Magnolia, half school?
yes.
Okay, so, and the school property is basically fenced. The playground is fenced right along the property line there. And that's not even my issue here. My issue here, yes, those apartment buildings would be jammed in there. And I know just because I'm very familiar with that property in between Alderney Drive and where the school is. My issue is that this would be agreeing to put apartment buildings in where they have no business being put in Enfield. We've got apartment buildings in all different ways in Enfield in the corridor area. And We've got all kinds of places where apartment buildings can go, and they are going as we speak, and they have gone. And to start saying, well, you know what, now a developer's gonna come in, and yes, we're gonna let them put apartment buildings in where they're not supposed to be going in. And trust me, they should not be going in there. We need to draw the line, and we need to make decisions that are best for our residents and our communities. That needs to be our top priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hebb.
Not quite done.
Oh,
Just add to that, sorry.
excuse me.
Sorry about that. But we just showed a picture there of the R2, the new proposed R2 homes and the street coming in.
Sorry, could you repeat that for me? please?
John just commented on a street coming in off Alderney, and it showed the new R2 homes there. Yeah, that one, that looks great. And the access into Alderney, that all looks great. That's a good looking development, and yeah, I'd sign off on that tomorrow. And having the access into Alderney, yeah, that looks good. The apartments are not appropriate. Thank you.
Is that all, Councillor?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Hebb. Shoot. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, could you go back to that is a concept plan. Where the apartment buildings are now, that is zoned as R2?
Correct, yeah, I'll show you on this is
Yeah.
R2, yeah.
So what would they be allowed as of right? Would they be-
So single or two-unit dwellings.
Yeah, so they couldn't build a three-story building or anything like that?
No, I think the maximum for that would be 11 meters, so it'd just be either a duplex or a single unit.
Okay, so could they build a two-story apartment building?
No apartment
Yeah.
buildings are
No
permitted there.
apartment buildings at all?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Warden Rolston.
Yes, thank you. Debated entering into the discussion or anything, but I just, having heard some of the discussion, I just feel a need to say that I know many folks who live in rental properties and apartment buildings, and I know many folks who own their own homes. Some people, it's a matter of affordability. Some people, it's a matter of availability. And some people, it's a matter of downsizing as they get older. And I just am a little bit uncomfortable with hearing the fact that these apartments would be rental units characterized as somehow being a bad thing, because I do not agree with that. We're all aware that, there could be bad people living in apartments, absolutely, but there could be bad people living in homes that they own as well. And for me, that does not factor into this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Councillor Miriam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and a question back to staff about traffic flow. I believe it was referenced earlier a little bit in terms of, more people, more cars, more traffic. I believe it might have been referenced more, study to come or consultation, but, just based on what you're seeing, the numbers, the knowledge of the existing neighborhood now, if that were to go ahead and you had more vehicles, can you add a little more color to just some of the concerns that people might have about that? Or is it a manageable concern?
So as I mentioned, these have been given approval for a new street in here, Municipal Street. Nova Scotia Public Works will have been consulted on that. And again, with the subdivision application, they'll also be consulted, but this is obviously what we're talking about today.
Yes.
And as part of that application, we will reach out to Nova Scotia Public Works and see if they have any concerns. It's really, I don't have any kind of foresight as to whether they will have any concerns. They may request a traffic impact statement just to kind of understand that road as it connects to Highway 2 and if there's any concerns there. But until we get those comments back, it's really hard to know what or if they may have concerns.
Yeah, I mean, I just sort of thinking out loud, whenever I drive through that area, Alderney in particular, there's a bit of a hill there. Not a huge hill, but, it's busy. It's not completely flat. It would, no question, it'll be more vehicles and so on, but, that's my only comment. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Garden Cole.
I feel like we've had a fair bit of conversation and everyone has spoken who wants to speak. I'm going to make a motion to move that staff not authorized to schedule public information on any further discussion on this proposed application.
You have a seconder? Okay, it's moved in second. Councillor Perry to the new motion?
I was on before the motion.
Okay, go ahead, I'll give it some leeway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I sat here and listened to all the conversation and the concerns. And conversations like this just make other items like transit be a no-go for me. Because we need population density to have transit nodes throughout communities. And having population density next to a school, next to a continuing care assistant with apartment buildings just makes it a great place for a transit node to allow people who possibly couldn't move to move. I think that, when you look at that piece of raw land the way it is, there's, 2 rows of streets, 2 rows of houses separating it. It's tucked away out of sight. I personally don't see an issue with it. It does provide alternative housing because in an area, if you're just going to build R1 and R2 homes, right, you're pricing young people out of anything now. And sometimes the development to put those R2s in to make it feasible, they need that multi-unit or it's not going to get developed at all, which again doesn't help anybody in the community. So I'm actually a little flabbergasted that we wouldn't even go out to hear what the public has to say, that we're killing it before we even go to the public, right? Like how many times you have to talk about public consultation should be done, and yet we haven't done public consultation on many of the things here in this chamber the last month. We've done everything but public consultation. And this is another instance of stopping that again. So I'm just disgusted.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Garden Cole to the motion.
Yeah, I just wanted to put some perspective out there for anyone who's been down through District 1 in Enfield recently. We are providing tons of opportunity. There's tons of development going on, apartments going up everywhere and slated to go up. So we are not shirking our responsibilities to provide housing in any shape or form. We are actually over-excelling in that department. So, and anyone who's been down through Enfield knows that. All this is looking at a piece of property and saying, you know what, no, we're going to allow this to go up as of right and not let it develop in a way that, in an area where that isn't particularly, where that isn't accepted in that area. 30 seconds down the road to your left or your right, they can do that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hebb to the motion.
Yes, it is, Mr. Chair. I will not be supporting the motion. We're here to gather all the information we can to make a formal decision. And without allowing a public hearing like this, or people a chance to speak, we're not gathering all the information. So I won't be supporting the motion. I think we should go forth at least that far. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Musa to the motion.
Yeah, kind of. Thank you. I just like to apologize. I didn't mean by degrading the rental and like the tenants and stuff. I went overboard and I apologize and sorry. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Warden Rolston.
Thank you. It's very difficult sometimes to balance both sides of these arguments. And because I hear both sides. And I hear the need for housing, I hear the need for transportation nodes, but at the same time, I hear the councilors elected to represent the areas saying that, in their opinions, it's not a good place for apartment buildings for the variety of reasons that they have stated. And this motion, if it was, if the motion was to authorize, it's not to authorize public hearing, it's to authorize going out to the public and sharing the information that we have that's been shared here today. And I don't know if council is not, and we'll see when it comes to the vote, if the majority of council, based on the information that we have, are not inclined to think that this is a good idea, then I'm not sure we should be taking something that the majority of council thinks is a bad idea out to the public. So it's kind of a tough situation to be in. And I initially approached this based on reading the documents and that, and initially felt, well, okay, this, doesn't look too bad, but then having heard, and it does carry weight with me, no matter who the counselors are in the area. It does carry some weight from me to hear their thoughts on what it means for their community. And I struggle as well to hear comments that say, well, if we're not going to do this, we're just going to keep R1 and R2 communities. And you know what? There are still places in society for R1 and R2 communities. People like to live in, call them old-fashioned communities or whatever you call them. There's nothing wrong with wanting to live in a community that's R1 or R2. And many of these people built or bought their properties based on that zone being in place and based on the character of that subdivision, community, or whatever. Which brings me back to the fact that a number of years ago, it was very frustrating for me because at that time we had folks coming in wanting to change R1 to R2 or multi-unit or something all over the place, and it was almost like it was a rubber stamp. And that brings me back to the fact that, as the councilors have said, there must have been a reason that the zoning that's in place now was established on the properties that it was established on. Maybe the purpose is to protect R1 and R2 communities, maybe it's traffic related, I don't know. But there has to be a reason that it was placed there, and I find we are getting into the situation again where people are buying properties knowing full well what the zoning is on those properties when they buy them, and then immediately coming in with very well done, very lovely looking projects sometimes that are not allowed on the zoning, and coming in, so just, expecting us to kind of fix it so that it's allowed. And I'm not sure that it's a good idea that we become accustomed to automatically doing that again. I think it requires fuller discussion, fuller investigation, fuller something, maybe even going back as to why it was zoned the way it was zoned in the first place. So, Having said that, at this point in time, I'm prepared to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Nobody left to speak. We'll go to the vote. Everybody understands what we're voting on? No, we're voting on Councilor Garden Cole's motion first.
To not go.
To not.
A yes means a no.
And according to the screen, it's a tie vote. Where somebody hasn't voted yet. We only have 12 and we have 13 bodies, so. Shirley, could you clear it and we'll do it again?
Has everyone voted? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, there's 13 people here. Did you vote?
Yep, I pressed,
Yeah, I have voted. It tells me that. Oh, you haven't voted.
I pressed it 3 times, so,
It's telling you to vote.
well. It's not accepting my vote, so.
No, it's Norval. It's not taking its vote. We'll reset the vote.
Reset the vote for me, please.
Still not accepting Norval's vote.
I voted against.
So it's
No, I
6, 4,
can't.
7 again?
There, I got it.
Okay, I can press the button, I guess. So the motion has been defeated. I vote of 6 for, 7 against. Do I have to read them? Voting against, Deputy Warden McPhee, myself, Councilor Merriman, Councilor Hebb, Councilor Perry, Public Member Harvey, and Councilor Tingley. So what we have left is the motion on the screen.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to make the motion that Planning Advisory Committee recommends to council authorize staff to schedule a public information meeting to consider an application from Arkham Development Limited to amend the MPS LUB by changing the land use designation and zone for portions of PIDs 452-35843 and 452-35835 Dory Lane infill.
Do you have a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Warden McPhee. Nobody wishes to speak, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed with a vote of 7-6 with Councilors Dixon, Warden Rolston, Councilor Musa, Councilor Rhino, Public Member Balcom, and Councilor Garden Cole voting nay. Thank you, Rachel. Next item on the agenda is Plan 25-008, Casey Concrete Development Agreement Application. Debbie, you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a new application Again, it's from Casey Concrete Limited. It's for 57 Lone Street in Hardwood Lands. The subject property is outlined here in red. The size of the property is 2.55 hectares, and the proposal is to enter into a development agreement to permit a pre-mixed concrete batch plant on lands that are zoned Business Park BP zone. And the surrounding land use is Business Park. It's located in the Milford Business Park, and there's other industrial uses located around it. And across the street, across Highway 2 is rural use zone land. Again, a satellite image just showing the outline of the property, showing the industrial park and Highway 102. The proposed building will be approximately 60 feet by 40 feet and will be constructed on the northwest corner of the existing building. The building will house a concrete mixing plant, aggregate storage bins, and a quality assurance lab. External to the building, there will be a loading ramp and silos for raw materials. The addition of the pre-mixed concrete batch plant will allow the precast factory to mix its own concrete batches on site rather than having to transport the concrete by truck from a ready mixed concrete plant. So right now, they transport their concrete from the adjoining property during the summer months. That's where the majority of their concrete comes from. About 25% of it also comes from Truro, but however, during the winter months, that concrete plant shuts down on the adjoining property and all the concrete comes from Truro. So this will allow for them to do the batch plant on their current property. And on-site batching of concrete allows for better consistency and therefore higher quality control, which in turn will allow the applicant to expand his capabilities. And having an on-site electrified batch plant will also help reduce the applicant's carbon footprint by eliminating the diesel-powered trucks needed for production of the concrete used in the daily manufacturing. So here we have just a site showing the existing building here in gray. And then there's another existing building on the property that's currently being rented out for another business. The proposed addition is to be located on this corner of the existing building and is 40 by 60 feet. We have the ramp and then we have the silos for the raw materials. And this just shows you the satellite image of it. And again, the gray images are buildings that are already located on site. The blue is the new building. We have the ramp and the existing silos. And there's a 3D model of the proposed addition as well. So it's policy ED 41 that permits council to consider the development agreement application. And as part of the citizen engagement policies, we'll put an ad in the paper indicating that the application is under review, and we'll then send out a questionnaire in the mail to all property owners within 300 meters of subject property asking for comments on the proposed application. And then we'll review the staff report and ask for comments from our reviewing agencies. And today's recommendation is that we give initial consideration be given and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Debbie. Warden Rolston has a special announcement to interrupt this proceeding.
I ask council's indulgence. We have news. It is of great interest, I believe, not only to this municipality, but to all municipalities in the province. Our new Minister of Municipal Affairs has just been sworn in by the province. The new Minister of Municipal Affairs is none other than MLA John A. McDonald. So I just wanted to pass that information along. I think it's safe on behalf of council to extend congratulations and best wishes to the new minister, John A. McDonald. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. I didn't see you to get too nervous for just sitting there. Congratulations to John. First up to speak, Councilor Merriman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the report, Debbie. Question for you about, I guess, just the nature of the proposed addition on the plant. And I believe in the report there was talk about, just getting addressing compatibility issues with neighboring residences. And I guess I just got thinking about, things like, noise, I don't know, you name it. Can you shed any light on, will it add to the noise level? Are you able to share, I guess, any other issues with ramifications of that? Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can ask about the noise, but right now there is a batch plant that's operating on the neighboring property right here. I don't believe we've had any noise complaints, but I can check with our development officer. In terms of industrial uses, most of the properties located in the, located in the Milford Business Park are truck heavy, those types of noises, industrial noises. I believe it's BCR that's located here, and they do heavy equipment repairs. And then there's Happy Harry's there as well. So there are a variety of uses in the area that would also produce a large amount of sound. And then we have the Highway 102. On the opposite side of the highway, it's treed right now and is zoned rural use. There is the Milford recreation area right here just at the corner, so I'm not quite sure if they'd be impacted by the sound, but they'll probably receive the questionnaire and they'll indicate any concerns that they may have. In terms of the road network, we will consult with our own engineers and Nova Scotia Public Works or if they have any concerns with traffic, but in considering that it's probably be a reduction in truck traffic because the batch concrete plant will be on site, and then dust and mitigation is another issue that we probably want to ask the developer if they can explain how they will try to mitigate any of those issues.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hebb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to move the recommended motion. Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council give initial consideration to enter into a development agreement for a pre-mixed concrete batch plant use located on property identified as PID 451-77128, 57 Lona Street, Harwood Lands, to enable a public hearing and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing.
Second.
So moved in second.
Later.
On before the motion, Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll support the motion, but I just wanted to know, is this going to be in conjunction with the plant that's already there in another, or are they going to, I guess, shut that one down and go with the big one? Or is this specifically just for precast?
I haven't asked them if they were going to shut down the plant on the adjoining property, but I can ask them that as part of the application. So we can find that. I know in the future that they would like to expand the existing production facility that they have. And they can do that under the business park zone. It's just that the actual concrete batch plant had to have a development agreement.
No, I'd like to know if they're going to
Okay.
have. Thank you.
Is that all, Councillor? Thank you. Nobody left to speak, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Next item on the agenda is land secondary planning strategy, amendments to MPS and LUB. Rachel, you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is regarding the land secretary planning strategy, and the consultants presented to Planning Advisory Committee in September with regards to this. You may note that this is part of the HAF application. This is one of the milestones with regards to this project, and this needs to be completed by December 22nd this year. So the amendments in the secretary planning strategy prepared by FBM are fairly comprehensive and detailed, but they were drafted following input from council, municipal staff, and various departments, the public and landowners. but because they are fairly lengthy and fairly detailed, staff are recommending that that package of amendments go to be considered in the part of the plan review, which is due to be beginning in January 2026. But a part of the amendments that are being discussed today is kind of like setting out council's intent to consider that package of amendments that were proposed by the consultant. And so one of the first elements of that is to redesignate and rezone the land that's identified on the map there to Lands Comprehensive Development District. And the second set of amendments are draft text amendments to the municipal planning strategy. And I won't read these out in detail. They're all included in the staff report, but essentially it just identifies the area of land. It protects the current development rights of landowners right now. So saying that the rural use zone uses are still permitted on that land until such a time that council develop new policies and regulations for the Lands Comprehensive Development District. And that this identifies that it will be reviewed in the next plan review. And also there's a couple of constraints there that need to be identified. So those are will propose to be drafted into policy, which will be the need for a new vehicle bridge crossing the 9 Mile River, and also the need for a comprehensive infrastructure master plan. Included in the amendments are amendments to the land use bylaw, which just sets out the ability of the landowners to continue to have the ability to build rural use zone uses if they should choose. And I'm just noticing now there's actually an error in this. I just want to correct that now. The last section should be shall be permitted in accordance with the regulations of the rural use. It should be RU in brackets, and zone shouldn't be in brackets, so that just needs to be fixed. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And citizen engagement, a public information meeting was held on October 7th, and all of the notes from that meeting have been appended to the staff report. There were approximately 45 people in attendance, and most of the questions, I would say pretty much all of the questions, were related to the detail in the secretary planning strategy, and rather than the specific amendments which are included as part of the package that are being reviewed today. If approval is given to schedule a public hearing, letters will be sent to property owners within the land secretary planning strategy study area, inviting them to attend, and a notice will be placed in the Chronicle Herald. And we're at the first reading of amendment stage. So the recommendation is to give first reading and authorise staff to schedule a public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rachel. What is your wish, council? Councilor Tingley.
Through the chair, question. You mentioned that, I think before the development would go forward, there'd be a comprehensive infrastructure plan?
Yeah, through Mr. Chair. So that, yes, the intent there is for that infrastructure master plan to be completed before any development occurs. You know, we need to know how we're going to service the land. That's a key component of this. So that will be part of that infrastructure master plan. And it's important to understand that before people start developing on the land.
So in that infrastructure plan, I went to the meeting, the public information meeting, and people had concerns about how they were going to be affected, neighboring properties, by flooding or their ability to get water from their wells, transportation and everything. So this is all going to be considered in the infrastructure, comprehensive infrastructure plan?
So some of the things that we heard at the public information meeting, there were concerns from residents with regards to their drinking water supply, the well water. I don't see this as necessarily having that element to it. That's more of a hydrogeological study. However, it's not to say that come the plan review stage that can't be added in as part of a policy that developers have to undertake a hydrogeological study. This is more about how you get services to the serviced area of the Lands Comprehensive Development District. And it will, it'll need to be fleshed out some more as to what's included, but I suspect we'll also need to look at how you actually get people into that area. That there's the crossing over the 9 Mile River. So I know that's been identified as a separate thing, but I think infrastructure master plan to me is pipe services and road network, those kinds of things.
Okay, I have a lot of concerns about how that property might, the people that might move into that property might be affected and how it might affect the surrounding properties. But for now, I'm going to recommend this motion. So I'm going to move the motion. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council give first reading to the amendments to the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw relating to the land secondary planning strategy and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing.
Second. Moved in second. Councilor, you want for the motion?
Yep, speaking to the motion, and thank you, Mr. Chair, and through to Rachel, thank you for the report, and also a question on the infrastructure master plan. And in looking through the report and the material, when you look at the phase development of that area, and you think at a very high level of an infrastructure master plan, on one hand, it kind of sounds like all or nothing in terms of like a final plan. But, thinking about this a bit more and going through it, you come across things like no development agreement will be issued until all costs are addressed through the infrastructure master plan. And then I got kind of questioning myself, thinking, well, is it really, one big plan for all phases, or is it a phased-in approach? I would think it would be more of a phased approach, because we've been talking so far about you do sections at a time. It doesn't sound logical to me that if you're doing phases that you'd have an entire infrastructure master plan for everything if you were just dealing with phase one. Can you comment on that a bit, please?
I don't know if Jesse may have some things to add to that, but when we were working with the consultant, it was more about, does it make sense for this area to be developed financially? So the infrastructure master plan will need to look at how that area is serviced, what's the cost of that, and then council will need to make a decision based on that, whether it actually makes sense to move forward with developments. So that's why that's in there, to see whether it's feasible to actually develop the area. So that's not specifically related to phasing, although that infrastructure master plan may say, from a financial perspective, it makes sense to move these phases around just because of where the pipes need to go and where the infrastructure needs to go. So that may be another element to it, but the infrastructure master plan won't be brought forward at each phase. It's more of a before anything happens on there, we need to have this infrastructure master plan.
Yeah, I guess I'm still a bit confused. I was also at the public meeting, and I know one of the questions was about how quickly, and the response was it could take years, maybe even decade with an S at the end, over quite some time. And I'm still even now left kind of wondering, when I think of infrastructure master plan, it sounds like totally scoped out, but I think if you're doing a phased approach, it can't be. Am I right? I mean, in terms of, to me, an infrastructure master plan sounds like it's all scoped out, the costs, how it's all fitting together, but it really does sound like it would be more, maybe stages or phases aren't the right word, but it's going to be bite-sized chunks in terms of, because again, to get the development agreement, it does say that it's got to be compatible with an infrastructure master plan. So at a very early stage, that first development agreement that comes in, it's got to line up and be supported by the infrastructure master plan. So I'm just seeing it sounds big for everything when I don't think it can be, in terms of what it's covering.
So I think it's about the steps that need to happen. So the first step is there's the policies in the MPS, and this is how it's provided in kind of a very high-level roadmap to how things may start. That identifies the infrastructure master plan. That needs to happen before any development agreements can really occur, and that is, it's not been scoped out as to what that master plan looks like. It's just, we need to know answers to some of these questions, and we probably don't know what all the questions are at this stage, but we'll need to figure out what we need to know, and then include that in what's covered by the infrastructure master plan. Then council will have that information before anything else moves forward. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Well, it sounds kind of fluid. I don't mean that in a critical way, but I don't know if we can nail down kind of a final answer now, but it does, I think it's a lot of things like lift stations, where the water's coming from, there's like the, sewage part of the equation, and there's a lot of moving pieces, and not to mention getting into, a potential bridge and things like that. So, but it sounds like before phase one would ever happen, at least for phase one, there would be a scoped out infrastructure master plan for the first phase.
yeah, so that's correct. And actually, when you're just kind of clarifying some of your questions there you had in your head, that there'll be this overarching master plan, and then as each phase comes forward through a subdivision, then there will be engineered designs for some of those additional elements that maybe that infrastructure master plan doesn't identify, the minute details that might come forward at the subdivision stage, where that will identify exactly what infrastructure is needed. The infrastructure master plan is more of a high-level document, and I don't mean to put the director of infrastructure and operations on the spot here, but I don't know if he has anything to clarify what he might foresee in that master plan.
Jesse,
sure.
any comments?
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chair. So as you're building out and as East Hants is looking at becoming a significantly larger urban facility, I'm going to start off by saying all major centers are built off their relationship with water. First and foremost, that is what we have to figure out. And you can't do that in phases. You have to understand what is your maximum yield potential. And we do have I'm going to start with a precursor of a spoiler alert. We've got a public report here talking about a study needed to identify what our maximum approval is from drawing from the Shubenacadie River. Later on the agenda today, we're going to talk that, and a study needed to do that. Post that, the follow-up study is a study that's already on the business plan for ideally this fiscal. We've got some staff in discussions in the last 2 weeks on it, actually, about then looking at Grand Lake. We draw from the Grand Lake watershed, but how we draw and where we draw could change in the future, which could change our potential maximum yield to build out and plan. And that's going to be the play for East Hants. And once you do that, then you start saying, okay, this is the potential. How would we phase it in? How does water get from wherever we're drawing more direct, if you will, from a Grand Lake watershed area, get over to and feed into a land secondary planning area? Once you have that, then you have to look at your secondary infrastructure, your wastewater treatment. Are we connecting it to our own systems? Is it its own isolated system? It's complex. And you have to understand the sequence of events and your constraints before you can even get there. We are several years from figuring that out.
And I guess this all would filter ultimately down to, in the event of a development agreement being issued, extra charges that, they would entail as part of that. So, yeah, no, that's it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor. Nobody left to speak, we'll go to the vote. Motion's on the screen. And the motion is passed unanimously. Thank you, Rachel. Last item on the agenda for planning advisory today is lakeshore floodplain mapping. And Director Woodford, you can begin when you're ready. And you are presenter one. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So last year, and I apologize for the time it's taken to get this report to you, but council did request that staff prepare a report on the feasibility of establishing floodplain policy with respect to lakes. So this is totally different than what we've done in the past in terms of floodplain mapping along rivers. And the motion asks us to look at the process, what it would cost, and what would be involved in something like that. So currently, we only have floodplain mapping along our rivers, specifically Shubenacadie River and a portion of the 9 Mile River. And that was all based on a floodplain study that was done, the most recent one, 2014. There was one done prior to that. It turns out, as I've learned, that lakes present a much more technical challenge in terms of doing floodplain mapping than rivers. Rivers generally have a fairly well-defined floodway and flood fringe. Lakes are much more complex. You can sort of think about a lake system where lakes are connected by channels, sometimes of different depth and width, also wetlands or aquifers. So it's a much more dynamic system to try and predict how any rainfall event will impact the whole system. And we do actually have a fairly local example. The District of Lunenburg, in their most recent plan review, did look at this very issue. They did a floodplain study in conjunction with the District of Chester. In the end, they decided not to use that information to restrict land use. There were a lot of concerns from property owners around the lakes about the accuracy of the study that was done. And this is just a snip from that study that kind of shows you what it sort of looked like. The lighter yellow would be the lake itself, and then the gold color is the flood, part of the floodway, and then the red would be part of the flood fringe, so the 1 in 20 and 1 in the 100-year flood lines. Again, very difficult environment to do that in compared to a river. And they spent about $200,000 on that study. And given the number of lakes in East Hants, which isn't as easy a question to answer as I thought, we have about 100 lakes, but the exact number is questionable. I think you would be looking at a similar number here to do something like this. And I would also say that although we don't have floodplain mapping and therefore zoning around our lakes, we actually do have some policies to help protect both properties and the lakes itself. There's a 30-meter setback from lake shores for all structures, unless you have an undersized lot, and that can be reduced to no less than 15 meters. In addition, we also have a 10-meter setback where removal of vegetation is restricted. So there are a couple of important policy planks that we have. And those measures do help protect the sensitive riparian zone from ecological damage, as well as help protect structures along our lakes. And again, the motion asks us what's involved in a study like that. It would be a fairly standard study: data collection, modeling analysis, stakeholder involvement. Typically in a floodplain study, you would try and find information about historical floods from residents and so on. Then you would have outputs, the actual flood mapping and so on, and then a formal review and adoption process to turn it into regulation. So, the kind of stuff we've seen before. And for those that were here during our 2016 plan review and the controversy in Shubenacadie, you'll kind of remember what that looked like. So to conclude, well, we certainly agree with the goal of protecting residents' property and sensitive lake environments from flood risk. Don't think expanding the HF and MF zoning to lakes is recommended due to the cost, technical complexity, and potential public concern. And again, with those other tools that we use, we think we're already doing an okay job, I think. Of course, the alternative would be to direct us to prepare to budget for such a study. But the recommendation is to maintain the current lakeshore setback regulations and not pursue floodplain mapping and regulations surrounding lakes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, John. Councilor Perry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pretty straightforward report, so I will move that we maintain the lakeshore setback, or Plan Advisory Committee recommends to council to maintain the current lakeshore setback regulations and not pursue floodplain mapping and regulations surrounding lakes.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Nobody wishing to speak, so we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. That concludes planning advisory for today. Question to council before I adjourn. Park Rec and Culture is missed from this morning. Would you do Park Rec and Culture next and then go to I&O because there's in-camera session there, plus in-camera during regular meeting of council? What is your wish?
Parks and Rec.
Park and Rec? Okay, we'll do Park and Rec next after our short break. We'll come back at 3:30. And planning advisory is adjourned.